Welcome, everybody. Happy Wednesday evening.
Hi, Moji. Hey, everybody. Hi, Macy. You've been very busy.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Greg. Oh my God, you followed me over. Thanks, Greg. Hi, John. Hi, Mike. Welcome, welcome. Macy, who's with you?
This is my Vietnam War veteran friend, Nick, who is very pro-peace and is happy to be in tune with us and
All
has a
right.
lot of
Thank you.
experience.
I
And this
just
is
left.
Fluffy. I'm the
Hi, Fluffy. So adorable. Hi, Steve. Hey, Dolores. All right. Well, we have some amazing guests today that I want to get to soon. So, unless somebody has, oh, hi, Dominique, unless someone has something they want to share from the week or that they're working on before we get started, thought we would move right in. Don't see any hands raised. So could we just please put our feet on the ground and take a deep breath to feel this amazing life we have. Take breath into our lungs, deep breath in, and a deep breath out. Oh my God, life, it's ours. We're living it. It's crazy life, but this simplicity of breath, another breath in and out. So as you know, I'm always saying the most important thing about change is culture. And so today we're really going to dive into the culture piece. So I'm going to start with a poem because it's Rosh Hashanah. This is a poem about, setting the year ahead. It's by Aurora Levins Morales, who's a Puerto Rican writer and poet, and a social justice, amazing Latina. So may we have a sweet year of struggle. May we sing and hear our voices multiplied. May we find the deep roots of courage and love and feel it rise in us like sweet maple sap, simmered in the heat of this hard work, the remaking of the world, until joy sugars our days. Just as honey is made in the collective of shimmering wings and sunshine grains of pollen gathered by many, sin prisa, sin posa, no hurry, no stopping. Let the joining of hands and hearts seep from the many compartments of the comb in a pool of liquid gold, and may the honey of our endeavors drip, slow and delicious, onto our tongues. May we have the sweet year of struggle. May our losses fertilize the fields into a bumper crop of blossom. May the squashes flower and bear rich fruit. May tomatoes and melons blush into flavor. May all we have suffered turn into soil. May a million mushrooms rise from the broken places and make medicine for our wounding. May sunflowers clean the earth. May we embrace the biggest challenges we have ever faced, draw them close, find their cracks, infiltrate their spores like tiny seeds, like moss. May we turn our faces to the sun and let hard times ripen us until we are bursting with juice, until we are blackberries among the thorns. May we have a sweet year of struggle. So that is a blessing and an offering for this evening of Rosh Hashanah, as many are setting forth on a new year. Now, I'm super excited to introduce you to two amazing, amazing activists, culture workers, world changers, influencers, caregivers, across the board, and creators. So first, Carolyn Woolard is been my partner on this journey for a very long time, really since I started. I asked her to join with me, and knowing that culture has to be at the core of change. We're talking about changing culture, and therefore we have to understand what culture is. We need culture workers, and we're with us in the struggle always. And I met her in New York City, and she was working at the intersection of art, economy, and technology. And she's a creator, and she actually had created a local peace economy project, understood it from the ground up, the complications, all the good, the bad, and the ugly of like what we have to do. But she's committed to building solidarity in her community and across really the globe, because she's worked across the globe. She's the co-founder of Art.Coop and Pollinator.coop, with our other amazing guest, Nati Linares, who also, makes so much happen in this revolutionary movement that we're all a part of. She comes from the solidarity economy movement, and has, witnessed the inequalities in being a musician, in the live music and media industry. And so she supports culture workers who are resisting capitalism, who are building new systems, especially those creating a culture of care, and the pathway to nurturing life. So with Caroline, she's the co-founder of Art.Coop, and also has her partner, the economist Francisco Perez, who works in popular education project for artists and organizers called the Economics of Emancipation. So I want to start out in introducing both of you. Caroline, to start with you first, because this is where we start as a community. What was the place where did you wake up to this, the violence of the war economy, and your dedication for your life to cultivating something different?
Whoa, okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's like 8 p.m. where I am, and I'm so glad to be here with you, Jody, and with Nati. Honestly, Nati and I have not gotten to talk as much as we need to all the time, and I'm always so inspired when I talk to Nati, so I'm excited that you helped us as two mothers find time to be with you, also a mother. Okay, so I just got my son to sleep. Let me think about how did I get into this. I guess one way to put it is that I was raised by a feminist, my mom, and she always helped me see that she had dignity as a parent and a mother and a worker, but she also was never paid well. And so I knew from a young age that systems were not fair and that there was value to mothering that would never be compensated financially. And then I became an artist, and I it was very clear that on the one hand, I knew my power. I knew that I, in some ways, could predict the future and speak to people on other planes of existence with, the sound and smells and sights that are often exiled from traditional learning spaces and working spaces. Like, we don't sing every single day at work. We don't draw to express ourselves, and we don't always eat together like we should when we're working. So I knew that I had these powers that would never pay my bills. And I never thought that I could pursue the arts because of that. But anyway, I was drawn to it, and I decided to persist and find some kind of way. And for me, that meant like living and working with 40 other people in a studio space that we built out together, with very little money and a lot of sweat equity and energy. And yeah, slowly over time, I realized that this struggle that we felt to pay our bills and make time for our art, like doing everything we could to have time to be with our imagination and with each other, had a name, and that it was called the solidarity economy or the local peace economy. That essentially all of the ways that we build community and speak truth and communicate without spoken word in this format, all the ways that we love and heal could be supported and protected more broadly if I join forces with people who might call themselves organizers or movement builders or peace activists or, yeah, solidarity economy people. And yeah, it was as simple as trying to pool our money to be in an art space together on one level. But on another level, it was about a political awakening to the structures that made it impossible for us to live our lives as creative people, and then thinking about how to change that.
Thank you. Nati, could you share maybe your awakening?
Sure. That was beautiful, Caroline. You inspire me. Everyone here inspires me. Thank you, Jody, for welcoming us and Marie into this community. I've followed CODEPINK since I was in college in the Bush era. You all reached me as a young, 1.5 generation daughter of Cuban and Colombian immigrants who I was the first one to go to, a fancy college, and CODEPINK was there. I remember the pink and I wanted to be a part of it. So it's such an honor just to be in conversation. I hope this is the beginning. I know we're signaling back and forth in this moment, and I feel like there's so much more deeper connection there, Jody and CodePink and other folks I've met through CodePink, like the comms world's folks who are lifing it, who I engage with as a communicator, have shared space with and admire. And I'm so deeply grateful for the ways in which you all show us how to resist and be beautiful and be femme and women and pink, which is my favorite. So I just wanted to say that first, and that I'm not a musician. My father was a musician, but I worked in the capitalist music business for 10 years, 10 plus years, which is what radicalized me and awakened me in a lot of ways. But I think before then, having been around more climate movements, and I didn't come to nonprofits until I was in my mid 30s. As I said, I was more of a hustler in the culture industry, working with bands, working from immigrant groups, Panamanian hip hop group from Oakland, Ghanaian hip hopper, native, really experiencing how exploitative the music business was, especially for artists of color, and being really naive about it. Like, oh, if enough of us win at the music business, then we'll have, and they're saying good stuff, that'll be enough for us to, build power. And, in meeting my partner, Francisco, and he's an economist, and asking, really reflecting to him what I was experiencing, the exploitation I was experiencing in the music business, helped me understand systems, and that we live under a system called capitalism, and that this is how wealth and power are distributed. And the music business is not unlike any other business. Neither is the media business, which I was engaging with a lot as a publicist as well. And so that was maybe the first wave of radicalization. But even before then, and becoming more aware of climate movements, working in the nonprofit world, was that I grew up across the street from the world's largest dump. And I never really identified with that, or like really thought about that, of like what that meant. And living in a place like Staten Island, where I grew up, also the site of the first Amazon union, right? Chris Smalls, a land of such extremes, right? Like all the things about Staten Island, the mafia wives, the police, that's a real thing. My high school sweetheart dad was a police officer, right? Like I was in these folks' homes. Also, fastest growing Black and brown population in the whole city, might be voting for Zoran. The last polls we saw, he's tied with Cuomo, right? Staten Island is such a place of extreme. So also growing up there, across from the dump, identifying as this mutant creature, and also the feeling of feeling misunderstood, right? We're known as the forgotten borough. Literally, like we as Staten Islanders identify with that, internalize that as forgotten swamp creatures that aren't worthy of being visited or even known. And so I think those were and then, one major thing, and I'll end with this, is saying good morning to my neighbor, Eric Garner, who was my community member when I was living on the North Shore of Staten Island. I would frequent a worker-owned co-op coffee shop, which I didn't know at the time was a intentional community, collectively owned coffee shop, but they were the place with the best fair trade coffee that I could get in a land of, where you couldn't get stuff like that. And Eric was my community member who would protect me from the base heads on that block because there was a methadone clinic there. And actually that morning, we shared a moment where I was walking to the coffee shop and, hey, Eric, what's good? He's with the cigarette. And the base heads are coming towards me and like he has my back and we share. It's just like another day on Little Bay Street in Staten Island, and then had to witness what the world witnessed, that happened less than 8 hours later. And so yeah, all those things, right? Like daughter of high achieving immigrants who benefited from free community college, a lot of things. Jody radicalized me. And then also just being a woman in the culture industry, the for-profit culture industry is not fun, especially when you have a brain and you think that culture can really change the world. And it's such an anti-intellectualism within the culture industry, a profit-seeking, clout-seeking, and at the same time, also the potential of culture that we all know is so powerful and is why they go for artists and culture workers, right? Trump going for the Kennedy Center first, right? Like they know. And so it's very heartbreaking to be in it, like really in it, really in the belly of the beast with major labels, major festivals, being in this body, so it was a lot of things. And then I swear, lastly, learning about the potential of peace economies and solidarity economies and new economies, where when I worked at the New Economy Coalition, which is when I crossed paths with you, Jody, very shallowly, but still, understanding that that was not just some white people stuff, like the grocery co-op, which is what I grew up thinking. That in my legacy is maybe not my direct lineage, because my parents are really on the American dream treadmill and it's worked for them, but maybe 2 generations back, I had some Afro-Indigenous Colombian woman who was running the, community, the tribal finance, when I could tap into that these practices are from Indigenous and people that have had to survive, that was also something very radicalizing for me. And while I love the resistance work and the direct action work, and I'm here for it, I've taken hiatus to go work in direct action stuff because it's so critical and y'all get the goods. There was also something so inspiring about the long-term building, foundational, rooting, deeply rooted practice of communal sharing and getting back to that. And so that was deeply inspiring to me, and constantly uncovering the ways in which artists were always doing that without necessarily having the language of solidarity economy, capitalism, all these like frameworks that are, I'm married to an economist. So some lady on a webinar was like, you're lucky you're married to an economist. I'm like, you're right. Like I have those, I have those frames, but artists have always practiced this, whether it was Black jazz musicians forming cooperatives, whether it was after Reconstruction, quilters coming together to create cooperatives, folks, the civil rights movement is where is born community land trust, which is like permanent community ownership of land, right? So that's what I would say would be the last thing that really radicalized me, is realizing that artists, we know how to do this. We know how to do solidarity. And not only is it important to create work that shifts people's paradigms about what's possible, which is so important and so critical, but those artists also need to be able to live, um, and raise children. And so that's kind of where Art.Coop fits in. It's like, how do we build an institution that can also build on the kind of slower build work of institution building so that artists can really meet their needs, while of course being part of the ecosystem of artists against apartheid, all the frontline artists, and all that critical work that inspires me every day.
Cool. Thank you. Well, beautiful stories. Thank you so much for bringing us now to you two figuring, sharing with us, how did you birth Art.Coop? What were you looking to serve?
Oh, that's such a funny story. I don't even know. Maybe I can start and then Nati, you can take it. But it was something like, first of all, it was the uprisings. It was like George Floyd, it was 2020. And I think there was this feeling that all things needed to change. And grant makers in the arts, this like national network of arts funders, like the Mellon Foundation, all the way down to like the Staten Island Arts Council, our members, they put out a call saying, explain to us the connection between an alternative economy and racial justice. And it was like, somehow somebody forwarded that to Nati. And somehow Nati had been following my work and sent it to me and was like, oh, you should do this, like report for them. But I had just had my son. I think he was like
Like
literally,
4 months old.
yeah, like just a baby. And I was like, no way. But I was also like, this is interesting that grant makers think it's an alternative. And like, we know that that's the wrong word because if you say it's an alternative, it will always reify the dominant system. So it seemed like, oh, what a, easy thing. Like, let's just tell them it's called solidarity, it's called cooperative, it has a history, it's not always an alternative. And also, I was like, I want to work with Nati. So I was like, let's do it together. I don't even know you, but I've heard about you and I want to know you. So this could be an excuse to collaborate. Like for me, it was about the relationship more than what I thought was going to be like a 10-page report. You can take it from there, Nati.
Yeah. 2 moms in a pandemic, uprisings happening. Oh, like philanthropy wants to learn about this? Ew, like I'm not philanthropy. Oh, okay. Let's like make it an opportunity to write the thing that we wished we had when we came into economic justice work as culture workers. I remember us talking about it like that. So if nobody reads this thing, if it's just for symbolism, and Caroline is very skeptical of philanthropy. I didn't know enough to not know. I'm too optimistic, let's say, naive perhaps. Look, again, I was new to nonprofits. Caroline, has been in that world a lot longer than I had been. So at least we can have a reference document. Let's use their money to talk to the people that we want to talk to and reframe this idea of, like Caroline said, of alternative, and really put them on a path of, solidarity economy. It has a name, it comes out of people and movements in the global South, and also shift the narrative around the role of artists in the solidarity economy. Kind of like what I was mentioning before of like, well, this gives us an opportunity to do case studies. If you read, it's 120 something pages if you're into that kind of thing. There's case studies and data, and there's directories of, there's a long movement of worker cooperatives in arts and culture and collectives, and maybe some of you are part of collectives that are artistic or cultural, but there isn't a lot of like formalizing it and putting it into a report, and or maybe there is, but I hadn't experienced it up into this point for this particular audience. And so what was the question? We're just telling the story of the report.
How
And
did
so
we
then,
meet? How did it get
okay,
started?
there. I was like, what? There's somebody who calls himself a solidarity economy artist and is trying to take back buildings in New York, where I know it's so hard to live. I had worked at an independent hip hop label in my late teens, early 20s that had just lost their space. They were like a legendary label. I'm like, wow, there's this Caroline person, and also growing frustrated within the economic justice movement, like other movements, of how sometimes cosmetic the relationship can be between grassroots social movements and artists, and wanting to really reclaim that a little bit more, and to show the ways in which artists have been key protagonists. And really, we've come to this evolution where we have this slogan like the solidarity economy needs artists and artists need a solidarity economy. But I like, flip it depending who I'm talking to. Like economic justice movements need artists and artists need economic justice move. You can kind of, so I think I'm rambling, but that's how we met, is kind of taking a leap of faith as two moms during a pandemic and wanting to grow more opportunities for funders to fund artists, not just to fund the symphony and to say I've done enough, or to fund, Black and brown faces in high places and arts institutions, but really have this conversation around economy and how wealth and power are distributed, especially in the arts and culture world.
Wait, I can keep going. I can take,
Yeah, go.
okay, so
Maybe take it
basically
back.
then we like got really excited, I don't know, even obsessed, I would say, about interviewing. We started interviewing all of these
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
philanthropists, and it turned out that a lot of the people working in philanthropy were actually former or current artists. And
Yes.
they were really upset with how the system was working, and they wanted to change it too. And by the time we wrote this report that ended up, like Nati said, being like a book because of us, and we're very intense, we also made a website, we made an animated video.
We dropped it like I was like we were working an album, like there was a meme campaign and there was a video, and yeah,
It was like
try
the
to not
most
just keep
hyped
it.
report you've ever read. And then we had a convening of all the people we interviewed. It was like 120 people on a Zoom. And we didn't think they would show up because we just interviewed them. But they actually were moved. And they were like, we have to keep having this conversation about economic justice in the arts because nobody's talking about how we make a living and how artists actually change systems. And so, yeah, eventually we were like, what if we kept holding this container like for years? And they supported us in doing that. And now, like, fast forward, it's been almost 4 years, and we have a team of 8, and we give an annual fellowship to arts cooperatives. And every year, now it's multi-year, and we've done a number of educational programs and cultural programs. I think if people are still like, what are you even talking about? I think it's important to be like, we're talking about who owns the thing and who makes decisions over it. Like Namaka Agbo talks about, it's like political power and economic power so that we can build the worlds that we want. Another way to put it is like, you might not realize that artists are behind the oldest Native cooperative and an organization that gives 35,000 freelancers pensions in Europe, and also the movement for Black Lives. So we're like, look, artists actually are innovating economic systems. Like gift economies are actually innovative. Mutual aid ways of redistributing resources are innovative. And you know that when you're in an arts collective, you're not about to be hoarding all the money. Like you do it together like you would hopefully in a more equitable society because you do it out of love. And it's not going to work if one person takes all the money and runs. Not that there even is much, So it's like talking about that and getting people really excited. So now, yeah, we have a huge directory. We have like a huge following on social media. And Nati is constantly recruiting in artists and helping them see that the economy that they live in can shift and that they can educate themselves about ways to change the world by connecting with other people outside of the arts.
So what I love about this is something that we teach all the time is to meet the need. And you all met the need. There was a need put out and you took it as an opportunity and you met it. And then it not only you met the need, but then the need was able to meet the need itself. And so I just think what you're talking about is this great reminder for us that meeting the need, like the questions are out there. And when we start to meet the need, then we're able to, make that bridge of opportunity for the next step. And so you both have your own other practices that have come out of this. And Caroline, do you want to share your pollinator? Because it's like each of you has taken like, and then what's the next step? And yours is in seeing some other needs and serving them. And I just want to say, like, this is essential to how I feel we repattern ourselves. Instead of like, I want to do, it's like, where am I breathing with the culture I live in, and meeting the needs creates that strong floor that we can stand on that helps to build. So Caroline, what's the next step?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a next step, but it's definitely like if I'm like walking around and looking at like holes in my sidewalk, it's like another hole that I feel like needs filling, and it's around secure tech. So I'm working on this thing called pollinator.coop, and it's secure technology video chat for people who want to gather in small groups. So you could imagine like this gathering could be happening on Pollinator, just thinking about what kind of conversations might be surveilled and how we could be a little bit safer and reduce the degrees of separation between people who could know each other. Like imagine if CODEPINK put all of its people in there, local peace economy plus new economy coalition plus the US Federation of Worker Co-ops, and then we match people because I'm really into like, you know, serendipity and magic. And imagine all the Capricorns in the like local peace economy movement who have poodles are now in a little group of 6 talking about their dogs and like how intense they are as people, or whatever. All the people who love roses and have like flower gardens are talking about their seeds, but they also do mutual aid. Anyway, it's like how to bring more joy in the connection. And I think one thing I'd say before that, that for me is like a basic practice that I was thinking about with you, Nati. I was like, why is this person annoying me so much who like said they were going to introduce me to someone and then they just never did? And I had to follow up. And I was like, you know what's different about me and you, Nati? Like, we meet people like they're our cousin, like immediately. Like, we show up in this way that's like, I'm building my root system and I'm an oak tree and like, I'm never gonna get pushed over. Like in Katrina, Naima Pennyman made this beautiful speech about how in Katrina, all the oak trees stayed. And the reason is because their roots are all connected times like 100 oak trees, so you can't knock them over. And like Nati and I are always operating like those root systems. Like I meet a person, I get interested in them, and I'm like gonna follow up immediately or as soon as I can and not forget. So we're constantly communicating and like sharing resources, like our life depends on it, because it does. And it actually gives us pleasure to be connected to new people. That's why Nati sends me an email and I go back like, let's do a 5-year project. We didn't know at the time, but it's like, I don't know who you are, but let's find out. Like, let's go deeper. Let's try more. So I think at the very least, if you're like, I don't know how to be in a space where somebody would care about me, or I don't know how to build community or find connection, like you're doing it by showing up right now. And there are lots of spaces like this, especially in the local peace economy, where people want to show up for each other. And often, like, there's sort of different social scripts around how to build friendship that are like, we're open to each other in a way that doesn't have to be about like liking each other, but it can be about a shared mission with like pretty fun activities and food and culture when it's done well. So I guess pollinators like trying to have more of that, more connection. I say like, do you want to make 5 friends this season? Go on Pollinator and you might be able to. And then for Nati, maybe it's like your EAT project, like economics, art, transformation. You could talk about that.
Mm,
But
yeah.
just before we move from you, Caroline, because you know, your connective tissue, it's like what local peace economy is about, is that thing that we're not practiced at, is that connective tissue, and making it not like transactional. I love that you're like, I have a rose garden, or, you know, it's just like connecting to what makes us human, what brings us joy. So how you've done that is so beautiful. And we do that here is like after, you know, we can say we break out into our like serendipitous groups, and they go on for hours and hours. In this practice that we need to get back to, out of being transactional and into being relational, and stepping out of like, I have to turn this into something, into what is it to be together. And Macy looks like she's been on Pollinator, because she's vouching for and raising up the yes, Pollinator, super cool. So bravo, we already have a member who's tried it out. Nati, do you want to tell us about your next project?
I want to say also thank you,
Oh.
Jody, for like pausing. And I think you definitely operate in that way. And I couldn't believe when I first met you that you were like, I think the first thing you said to me is, let's do something together. And I was like, hi, my name's Caroline. I don't believe you. But you were like, yes. So also thank you for teaching me that in your practice and
Definitely,
gathering.
definitely see a kin connector in you, Jody. Uh, well, I'm reluctant to say next because also all I want to also relay expectations. You know, Pollinator is brand new, and I like to say Art.Coop is an emergent hub. We're you know, I would say starting to incubate in the womb. Maybe a little, maybe like 3 months. You know, I wouldn't say we're completely embryonic, but I'm definitely focused on, yeah, yes, we have 8 folks, but like 3 of them are full time, like 4 of them are part time, right? So like we're still building and trying to figure out what our role is in the ecosystem after this report, and kind of the energy that the report and some of our work has generated in the funder world, and also in the arts world, of more folks coming to us, trying to find connection with other projects like theirs. How do we build up that infrastructure? How do we, you know, do that well with others that are, you know, beyond us, and not just be like, oh, we're the ones on the pedestal of a great organ. You know, we have to be working in ecosystem with others, doing this work, incredible projects all over the country in many different art sectors, movement sectors. And so part of that need that I'm seeing, and that is a big part that Caroline inspired me around as well, is just like the education aspect, and obviously being partnered with an educator, being the daughter of educators. Education is so critical to this culture shift, and not that I'm I'm not like an official formal educator, but part of where I see some of our work is going is creating these kinds of spaces, where artists can learn together. I'm working with my partner on he runs something called Economics for Emancipation. So rather than just be an economics professor at a school with all these business kids named Chad, you know, on the side, he also does workshops. No offense to Chad. Chad is getting awoken right now, okay? Chad comes up to Francisco and asks things that you wouldn't think Chad would ask. Okay, but you know, he also does, you know, popular ed for organizers, and we're figuring out how to do that more within Art.Coop with artists as well. I mean, we've already done that. Caroline did a whole course that anyone here can take for free, called No Sellouts, No Starving Artists, and it's part of like a 5 free course. You can take it yourself, you know, anyone can take it to learn about beginners, like what do cooperatives and arts have to do with one another? What do you know, time banks and gift economy have to do with artists? What does basic income, you know, have to do with artists? And there's other courses. Uh, so I think that's an avenue that we're trying to deepen within Art.Coop, and there's a lot of hunger. There's just not enough. Like I think right now we need to get into capacity mode. Like what are the different things that people are doing out there, and like who are the great facilitators over here? Like can we train up on each other's curriculum and deploy many different kinds of facilitators and trainings around, you know, I think we're so scattered right now. And so how can we actually And, I admire programs like at the People's Forum that are in person, that have a space in New York City that's so critical. But there are artists in Utah who are like, we want to access this stuff too, so creating those pathways for people. I'm a thousand flowers bloom type of girly myself, right?
But
All
what
the,
about
yeah,
educating also? Are you educating the arts philanthropy movement also?
that's
Because,
part of Art.Co-op's work.
yeah,
Definitely,
okay.
definitely. Part of we think of it as like two wings of a bird, but maybe they're
Right.
not equal as a strategy. But definitely the artist organizing is where I sit. But there's a wing that thinks about funder organizing because that's in our DNA. We did this report for grant makers in the arts. So why shy away from it? Like the people are hungry. And so one of our teammates, Robin, actually comes from a very wealthy family that they divested their inheritance into some of this solidarity economy infrastructure in Massachusetts, and is a theater head also, right? So is thinking about how do you employ holisticized somatics, they call it, right? Or how to be in your body. And when you're thinking about how you hoard money, for example, as someone who might be a descendant of a huge trust fund, right? Like, why not release that money into more democratic, other types of peace economy infrastructure? And so we ran a pilot of that this year called Art of Solidarity, where wealthy, creative folks who want to actually go through this practice of releasing money, and some of that money is going to fund our next fellowship, not fully, but it's an experiment of like, how can we also get off the teat fully of philanthropy and kind of have more creative ways of, and also we're thinking about what would the network, what's the what would how would we build a network of artists and actually make that sustainable? You're going to need that other wing. Unfortunately, I don't like it, but that's why I work with people that can do that work. But that's definitely a part of it. Caroline was just in a room with a bunch of funders on Monday. I'm like, I couldn't do it, but like, I'm glad you're doing it. Like really educating folks around, look, just because you fund one housing co-op and it didn't work out, like you don't get to decide as philanthropy to not fund housing cooperatives anymore, or not to, so doing those kinds of hard influencing and also demonstrating. And a lot of that also is communications, where I'm the only comms person on our team and the co-founder of this org. Like there is also a capacity thing of like, if we're
Well,
trying to win, we need
yeah.
field organizer. We need the dance field organizer. We need the music field organizer. We need a comms team of 5 and one video editor and a publicist who just works on this, right? And like we're not there yet. We're like 3 full-time, 5 part-time, trying to do a massive endeavor, which is build a cultural front for peace and
Cool.
fairness.
Yes. Well, one of the
Uh,
things, I mean, that you're talking about, and I know you're good at, that we could offer is the place to tell these stories. Because, I know when Caroline and I started, the piece of inspiration is as important as, because when you say peace economy, solidarity economy, or the other economy from this war economy that is extractive, destructive, and oppressive, it's that imagination part, because it's hard when the whole war economy takes away your creativity and your imagination. It's hard to figure out, like, what does that look like, because you're so in the crush of what the war economy does to you. So we're here, you can even just call us, say, go call that person up and ask their stories, because, from what you're doing to getting those stories out, and it's why we wanted you to be our guests, is we don't talk enough about culture. And, I just noticed that Haley has joined us. Haley, I know you're not prepared or anything like that, but you're an artist, you're a culture worker, and your commitment is to the planet. If you could share, how you've decided to use your space in at your role as a brilliant artist to move philanthropy into saving the planet.
Yeah, Jody, it's so great to see y'all. And I'm painting a painting of moss right now. At the end of the day, I paint a little bit, which I really
Moss
enjoy.
was in the poem. That's so cool when you say that. I was like, I don't know if you got to hear the poem, but it was in the poem.
Um, but yeah, I would like, this is something I want to listen to this talk, and I want to listen to it again. I want to listen to this conversation again. I love both websites that were just put in the chat. Amazing, amazing. And Caroline and Nati, like, just listening also to your love affair in terms of how you work together. I really feel like that. I think one of the great solidarities within the art community is one another, is these like long friendships. And I'll see other artists and 2 years will go by and we'll have dinner again. And it's like you just were in that conversation, you know, it's like that kind of depth and beauty. So it's like definitely the gift that keeps on giving. And yeah, the work I do is in the rights for all species, you know, that all historic communities and all species have right to have home. So I work on large scale land conservation or land protection. That's community led, locally led, indigenous led, and I do it through the arts. So artists donate small paintings or large paintings, and we work hard with matching funds and work to create new permanent protected areas. But you know, how I really loved what you said about participation. You know, we all just begin, sometimes it's like a $10 drawing. And my job is to support artists in making environmental difference in learning, you know, it's just being participatory and coming together to really truly protect this very planet that we live on. So yeah, I really heard what you said about starting where we're at and also just learning as we go. Because I didn't know anything about, you know, what is it to make an indigenous reserve or a community protected area? I knew nothing. But yeah, so I was really moved by what you're saying, and I love how you're using the digital commons and also thinking about the protection and privacy of digital spaces and digital communication to bring people together. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And maybe Haley, if you could put in the chat the link to your site, the Art Taker site.
Happy to do it.
Thank you. So Caroline and Nati, if we wanted to just finish out with anything you want to share that you've learned in the process that you feel would be useful to others that are cultivating their peace economy from their hearts.
Whoa, so many things. I'm like, maybe what's coming to mind right now is we're so different and it's great. Like, we really annoy each other and excite each other, and both of those things are necessary. It's like an ecosystem. It's like your own body, you know, it like rebels against itself and then magic happens. So it's like tension is inevitable. And if you find time to be with your own mind and then to be with other people's mind, these things will erupt, and embrace that and learn from that and don't walk away from it, because, you know, the hardest things are what transform you.
Thank you. Nati.
Oh, sorry, I'm a chat girl. Sorry, I'm a communicator, like writer person, but Haley. And yeah, Jody, I put a link there about the Art of Solidarity group for people that are with people with class privilege who are interested in redistributing and doing that in a creative way. And they just met this weekend on a theater that gave back some of their land to the local Nipmuc tribe. Haley, I don't know if you know Double Edge Theater. Yeah, yeah. So they all were gathering for the week. So we'll see what comes out of that. But what I've learned, oh man, ah, so much, so much. Uh, Maybe sometimes how fragmented things can be, and as like a Pisces mommy, like soft soul type. Um, yeah, I have like a can we all get along ethos sometimes that feels very like not good for this world. Like my partner calls me naive sometimes, and I'm like, why can't we just get these folks together with these folks? Like what's so I'm really excited about Caroline's pollinator kind of journey and like how that technology can be used to break down some of those fragments. Because like I said, I wasn't a movement nonprofit person. And so it's only been in the last 7 years. It's like, oh, if you don't use this type of language, then these people won't speak to you. And also as the daughter of a Cuban refugee, the way that we talk about international politics and political economy, like sometimes we're so at each other, even though we agree about 90% of things. And so that's something, maybe that's just something that's coming to mind because I'm having a hard time. But in this moment, I'm just thinking about, I see the potential in that, and that this moment is so dire that, we can use these technologies and projects and networks that we're building to kind of cut across those old sectarianisms of if we don't use the right language or if we don't have the right take about something, like if we can all agree about peace and if we can all agree about not like death cycle domination, well, then we can work together. And so I think that's what I'm learning of in this moment of direness everywhere. I'm in Utah with everything going on. There's, I was reading I listened to talk radio today in Utah because I was like, what are they talking about? And there was a daily caller, I'm part of a local party here. So we're talking about how to engage in this moment when there's just lies getting thrown at anything that's left. And I'm hearing that on talk radio today of like, they're calling us just the left as a way just to dehumanize all of us, no matter what I think about Cuba or what you think about calling it socialism or what you think about calling it Marxist Leninist or you calling it, centrism even. Like I'll keep them in my tent because they're going after all of us the way they're talking on talk radio today. And so what I'm learning is that this is a moment of such great opportunity for us to be about a future, no matter the little squabbles that sometimes our movements have. And the power of culture to cut through that and arts to inspire us to is like how we're going to get there. And we need to make sure these artists can survive and be resourced. So yeah.
Thanks, Nati. I think what you're saying too is the importance of artists being, if the artist's job is really to mirror, to speak ahead of, to, share what's happening. And if the only way to survive is to shut up and not share that, we're all doomed as a culture. And this work that we're doing, the local peace economy work, is about culture. It's like what we're trying to point out is that we live in a war economy culture, and that is extractive, destructive, and oppressive. And I've been saying this, how long, Caroline? For like a very long time. And what we don't understand is that's the air we breathe, the water we swim in. And we do know now that we've been part of it, and we know the peace economy is a culture, and it's catching. When people come inside and they start to participate in it, it's nourishing. It's like something you want to have more of. And there's something about the culture right now that you're talking about and warning about, Nati, in the sense that it's so toxic. It's so insane. I don't want to, it's psychopathy is its own in a petri dish of growing and growing and growing, that we haven't recognized that we created the conditions and fed this thing to grow. And yet because when you're in the culture of it and you don't know anything else, you become it. And that it's incumbent on all of us, and it is incumbent on culture workers to be able to survive as they are building this culture that is about connectivity, that is about life, and that is about love. And we know the power of love when we create those puddles of love together in community, and when we're building, we know the power of them. But it's like, I remind people, it's like, see that power, like it's 100 times more than like this other like toxic power. But like, we need to be building more of that to get in the way, so that it is in the connectivity that we grow and not in the separation. So that's one of the key things. I mean, clearly as a peace activist that I've been about since my whole life, it's like, when we allow them to separate us, we're tools of war. But whenever we find ourselves in that conversation or being moved in that way, that's being used by war. And so we each have a way that we can say no to being used by that, and also calling it out when we're in a room in a beautiful, connective way, not in a way to separate, but in a what if, you know, as we say in the pivot to the what if instead of the separation. And so what if we pay attention right now to building something for the future instead of, you know, the angst that people are drawn into. I run into this all day, every day. It's like, why are you paying attention to that? You can't change it. You didn't create it. You can't touch it. Why not put yourself in the things that you can change and touch and grow and cultivate? And it's just like, it's such a distraction. And the you know, you're talking about being creative, and I love that you two were so creative to just step into this opportunity. And I hope everyone can take away from this conversation, step into the opportunities that where creation can happen, because they're out there. Keep your ears open for them. And I just want to thank everyone for coming today. We've finished an hour way fast. Haley, thanks for sharing on the spot. Art to Acres is what Haley's working on. Thanks all of you for what you do locally and for all the messages you send in to me and inspire me with. We, yes, as Nati said, have a lot of work to do, and it is very serious. And even in that seriousness, we can have joy and play, and love, and you know, find what it is we're working for, which is this amazing life that we've been blessed with. So thanks, everyone. This was a lovely learning session. I look forward to more with you. Next time we'll have the break. It'll be a community conversation, and we'll be able to break out into our usual conversations. Marie, thanks for holding us together and sharing all the links with everyone. Caroline, Nati, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the rest of you, thanks so much for joining the conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.